You're on the final lap. The car ahead of you has been the target for the last 20 minutes. You've been patient. You've saved your tyres. You've studied where they're weaker. And now, finally, you have the opportunity. You're close enough to attack. The next corner is where you've been faster all race. You know exactly what you need to do. And then suddenly, your hands tighten around the wheel. Your braking point feels later than normal. You hesitate. You miss the apex. The move disappears. And afterwards, you ask yourself the question every driver has asked at some point. Why did I do that? Because the frustrating thing is, you were fast enough. You had the pace. You had already proven you could do it. So why, when the moment actually arrived, did your performance disappear? The answer isn't you suddenly becoming a worse driver. It's that your brain changed the way you were operating. Today, we're going to look at why pressure makes drivers slower, why fear causes mistakes even when you know exactly what you're doing, and the mental shift that separates drivers who collapse under pressure from those who perform when it matters most. Because confidence isn't about removing fear, it's about learning how to drive with it. Welcome to Sabotage, the psychology of racing, and today we're going to be talking about managing fear and pressure in racing. Fear is a strange thing in racing because nobody really talks about it. People love discussing setups, tyre temperatures, braking techniques and telemetry, but very few drivers are willing to admit they're scared. Not scared of crashing necessarily, scared of making a mistake, scared of losing a race they've dominated, scared of disappointing themselves. Whether we admit it or not, every single driver has experienced those thoughts. The difference is that some drivers let those thoughts take control, while others recognise what's happening and continue driving anyway. The important thing to understand is that your brain wasn't designed for motorsport. It evolved to keep you alive. Whenever your brain senses danger, whether that's physical danger or simply the possibility of failure, it activates what's known as a fight or flight response. Your body releases adrenaline. Your breathing becomes quicker and your muscles tense. Your heart rate, that increases, and your vision, that becomes narrower. All of those reactions are brilliant if you're trying to escape a dangerous situation, but they're absolutely terrible if you're trying to thread a GT3 car through a Rouge at 150 miles an hour. The really frustrating part is, your brain doesn't know the difference between genuine danger and competitive pressure. Leading an online race with hundreds of people watching can trigger exactly the same psychological response as a genuinely threatening situation. To your subconscious, pressure is pressure. Here's where things become really interesting. Most drivers think pressure makes them forget how to drive, but it doesn't. Pressure changes how you think about driving. When you're relaxed, your driving is largely automatic. You've repeated thousands of laps. You don't consciously calculate steering angles. You don't decide exactly how much brake pressure to apply in every single corner. Your subconscious handles most of that for you. It's the same reason you don't think about every individual moment when you're walking down the street. Imagine if every step required conscious thought. You'd barely be able to move. Driving works exactly the same way, but then pressure arrives. Instead of trusting all those hours of practice, your conscious brain suddenly wants to get involved. It starts asking questions. Am I braking too late? Don't lock the fronts. Don't miss that apex. And don't throw away this lead. And that is exactly where the problems begin. You're trying to consciously manage skills that should remain automatic. It's like trying to manually control your breathing while giving a presentation. The more attention you give it, the less natural it becomes. That's why your steering becomes jerky, your throttle application becomes hesitant, and you're braking earlier than normal. You're no longer reacting instinctively. You're supervising every movement. Ironically, the harder you try to drive perfectly, the worse you perform. One of the biggest mindset shifts I ever made was realizing that most mistakes don't happen because drivers are trying too hard to be fast. They happen because drivers are trying too hard not to fail. Those are two completely different mental approaches. When your focus becomes avoiding mistakes, your brain starts creating negative instructions. Don't spin, don't hit the curb, don't miss your braking point, and don't lock up. But here's the problem. Your brain has to picture those mistakes before it can avoid them. You're unintentionally rehearsing failure. Elite athletes rarely think that way. Instead of saying, don't lock the brakes, they'll think, smooth brake on release. Notice the difference? One focuses on avoiding failure. The other focuses on executing success. It's subtle, but it completely changes where your attention goes. And attention is everything in racing. Watch any top level racing driver after qualifying or during the closing laps of a championship deciding race. They don't look relaxed because they're not feeling pressure. They look relaxed because they've stopped trying to control the outcome. They're not thinking about lifting trophies. They're not thinking about championship points. They're not even thinking about what happens if they lose. They're thinking about one breaking point, one apex, one exit. Then they repeat the process again. That's something we can all learn from. Pressure becomes overwhelming when you try to solve the whole race at once. It becomes manageable when you reduce your world to the next corner. That's all racing really is. One good decision, repeated over and over again. One technique that's helped me enormously is developing a reset routine. Because mistakes are inevitable. Even world champions make them. The difference is what happens immediately afterwards. Most drivers spend the next 3 corners replaying the mistake in their head. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're analysing what went wrong. Meanwhile, they've completely stopped driving the car that's still travelling at over 100 miles an hour. Instead, build a routine, take one breath, relax your grip on the wheel and drop your shoulders. If you look further ahead and find your reference again, then carry on. No drama, no self-criticism, no panic, just reset every single time. Eventually, your brain starts recognizing that routine as a signal that everything is under control. That's exactly why professional athletes rely so heavily on routines. Not because they're superstitious, because routines create familiarity, and familiarity reduces anxiety. The final thing I would encourage every single sim racer to do is actually train pressure instead of avoiding it. Too many people spend hours practicing in empty servers where nothing is at stake. Then they wonder why they fall apart during races. Pressure is a skill, like trail braking and like Racecraft. If you never practice it, you can't expect to perform under it. Run qualifying simulations where you can only get one flying lap. Join races instead of hot lapping. Start from pole when you can. Put yourself in a situation where your heart rate raises, because every time you experience that feeling and still perform well, your brain learns something incredibly valuable. It learns that pressure isn't dangerous, it's familiar. And once something becomes familiar, it stops being frightening. Just quickly, I want to say a huge thank you to Drew Rabbit for creating this incredible livery for Assetto Corsa. The level of detail, creativity and effort that has gone into bringing this design to life is honestly amazing. Having a custom livery that represents the channel and the racing journey makes every session feel that little bit more personal. It's always inspiring to see talent within the sim racing community, and this is a perfect example of that. The time and passion that goes into creating these designs doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you again to Drew Rabbit for creating something truly unique, and I can't wait to get this on track and put some laps on with it. So the next time you find yourself leading a race, sitting on pole position, or defending your first podium, remember this: the goal isn't to become fearless. Fear is part of the competition. The goal is to stop treating fear as an enemy. Your racing heart doesn't mean you're about to fail. It means you care. The nerves don't mean you're not ready. They mean the moment matters. The drivers who consistently perform under pressure aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who accept it's there, keep their attention on the next corner, and trust work they've already put in. Because at the end of the day, racing isn't won by the driver who feels the least pressure. It's won by the driver who refuses to let pressure make the decisions. If you've enjoyed this video and want to learn more about the psychology behind racing and becoming faster, make sure you're subscribed, because the biggest improvements don't always come from changing the car. Sometimes they come from changing the driver.